A quick question for you guys with regards to the church. Would you say the church is a building or is the church people? Any thoughts on that one?
I think a church can only be a church if there's a community.
Wow, so you're putting the weight of your answer with people. All right. Any other comments?
I mean, if we were to think of it from like a satellite perspective, the church is a building. But if we're actually in here, this wouldn't be a church if there weren't people in it to recognize it as a church, which I could get really philosophical, but I won't.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, a satellite might argue otherwise, a building, right? And of course, the answer is both in a way. Church is a building, and it's also the people that make it up. But it wasn't always that way. In the earliest times, it was only people who gathered together. There were no buildings called churches. The church was the community gathered. And there was one thing that was very distinct about them that set them apart, and that was that they practiced resurrection, which means, among other things, that they sold everything they had and gave it to the poor, which in those days were mostly slaves and women whose husbands had died or left them. But another thing those early gatherings of the church did that really set them apart, and it seemed to come very naturally and was like a unique movement, was they sang together. And they learned very early on the soul force of singing together. That singing is one of the most powerful means to stand against empire, which is what they were up against. And you know, that has been a hallmark of the church for 2,000 years, the singing life of the church. It's been passed from generation to generation to generation, and we're grateful for Jay and Lindsay and Sabriel and Drummer Man for keeping that tradition going for us here in this community. You know, it would just take one generation to lose that tradition if anybody dropped it. And so it's up to each generation to pass that forward. Now this week we start into Lent, and we have decided that we're going to put our emphasis for the families, the children, the youth of Canadian Memorial on the practice of singing and the songs of the tradition, and to see if we can get people singing at home, whether that's with your parents, maybe a grandparent, maybe an aunt or visitors. Maybe it's singing by yourself in the shower. Maybe it's singing on your way to school. Mary, can you just hold up that resource? I left it over there. We have a package that has a devotional that will take our families through Lent. And it's got a whole playlist of songs included in the resource, the lyrics, and there's a Spotify playlist that will go with the songs. And in case you're one of those people that says, but I can't carry a tune, we've got a little pitch pipe tuner in the package as well. We're hoping, and Fen has tentatively promised on her 17th birthday, to lead a singing circle or two following some of our services during the season of Lent, just to get us singing without necessarily feeling like we have all the skills and gifts that these folk have, or the instruments or music. We just use our voice and sing. It's one of the most powerful means of being the church together. So we welcome families to pick theirs up. We'll send them off with the children after our time together today, one per family. Or we'll have some in the office through the week if anyone's listening online and wants to stop by and pick theirs up. Or if you're a parent or a grandparent of children or grandchildren that attend the church here and want to pick yours up from Michelle in the Great Hall after the service, we invite you to do that as well.